Hello, I hope you feel well today. Some time ago, Dr. Craig had some very bad things to say about people on YouTube and what they say about his arguments. And just lately, the biggest fan of his on YouTube, the channel Dr. Craig's Videos, has made a video saying the same things about YouTube users. I feel addressed because I am on YouTube, I'm an atheist, and I have had some arguments to say against Craig's philosophy.
I am just flabbergasted at some of the silly, ignorant responses.
I have never had religious education and have not been taken to church to worship, so the concept of God is foreign to me. I have to study it to understand it. But I study it in an objective manner, the way I study other fields like science or linguistics or other languages. That is why I listen to Dr. Craig.
The argument for everything beginning to exist, having a cause, would be based upon this metaphysical position that something cannot come out of nothing, that things don't just pop into being without having causes. So it's not because you believe the conclusion that you believe the premise.
The conclusion Dr. Craig seeks to prove is something he already believes in. He says elsewhere that first he acquired faith, the Holy Spirit was speaking to him in his head, and only then he tried to find means to justify this faith, but not to himself, because no evidence in the world would make him stop believing in God. He would never change his mind, but he needs some means to justify his faith to the general public.
That the way in which I know Christianity is true is first and foremost on the basis of the witness of the Holy Spirit in my heart. If in some historically contingent circumstances the evidence that I have available to me should turn against Christianity, I don't think that that controverts the witness of the Holy Spirit.
It's strange that his belief is not enough for him. He doesn't feel complete. He has to spread it around. And if this provides him with an easy, enjoyable to him, very lucrative way to make living, to make money on his faith, here on earth where it matters, all the better. In fact, it's the best.
If it was shown in a hypothetical situation that the evidence could be refuted, so if your arguments, for example, were refuted to a satisfactory level that you would recognise that they were refuted, would you still have your belief, or would it be a case where it became irrational to believe that?
I would still have my belief because my belief in God is not based on these arguments. These arguments are confirmatory of my belief in God, but my belief in God is not based on the arguments. I think that my faith in God is based on the inner witness of God's Spirit to my own heart. I have a personal relationship with Him. His Spirit lives within me.
So what have we here? Dr. Craig, at a certain time in his life, started believing in God. He says it's a girl in his teenage years. No surprise there. In your teenage years, a girl can have great power. So how did Dr. Craig set about finding the means to say what he believes to many people and make them believe it? On the one hand, he has his unshakable belief. The Holy Spirit speaks into his head or his heart, but this is only personal, subjective. He can't very well make a living, achieve the way he likes to live, only on going around and telling to people his own personal belief, what he thinks is true. the lunatic asylums are full of people with unshakable, deep-rooted beliefs in something.
I am Napoleon.
No, a personal, subjective belief is not enough for a career. He has to find some other means to convince people in what he believes. So he has found that in ancient philosophy and in the philosophy of the Middle Ages. He has reached into the formaldehyde of his philosophical knowledge, where he keeps dead corpses of long ago refuted philosophies, and takes from there the philosophy of Al-Ghazali from the 12th century.
What is the Kalam cosmological argument? Let's allow one of its greatest medieval champions to speak for himself. Al-Ghazali was a 12th century Muslim theologian from Persia. He argues that the idea of a beginningless universe is absurd. The universe must have a beginning, and since nothing begins to exist without a cause, there must be a transcendent creator of the universe. Al-Ghazali frames his argument very simply, I quote, "Every being which begins has a cause for its beginning. Now the world is a being which begins. Therefore, it possesses a cause for its beginning."
Cognitive sciences tell us how language is made, what it consists of. People make generalizations, they make abstractions, and then give that abstraction a name, a noun, and everybody knows the meaning of this noun, and that is how quick communication is achieved. The problem is that people give nouns not only to physical objects, but to other abstractions they have made in their mind. For example, mind. That's how people call the neurological activity in the physical brain, all the thoughts, ideas, abstractions that are made there. All this is called with one short noun, mind, and everybody knows what that means. But it is incorrect to take this noun and treat it as an object, just as you treat material objects, which are called with a noun, and treat it as a separate entity from the physical person. Mind does not exist separately from the brain. There is no unembodied mind.
Then God is a remarkably simple entity because he has no parts. There's no composition in God's being. An unembodied mind is an entity that is startlingly simple.
I advise you to read a thesis by Judd Evans, Philosophy and the Reification of the Unreal is the title. I have put the link in the description. And there he makes a very good study of linguistics and cognitive sciences. So, being is the gerund of to be, and that is taken to be something. For example, the material world that a person sees, the fact that it exists is taken to be an entity by itself. It's being, and it is treated as separate. Ghazali says the world is a being and it began to exist, so there must be a cause for it. But this makes the fundamental mistakes of making an abstraction of the physical reality and then making it a separate entity, and then, because it's in your imagination, you can do whatever you want with it. You can imagine it non-existing, and then you can start looking for a creator of it. Even in the 19th century, and maybe people before that, but in the 19th century, Marx had this to say about religion. What you do is make an abstraction of the physically existing things and then imagine this abstraction non-existing, and then you start looking for a creator. So as I see it, Craig has built this enormous Christian philosophy on two words, being and nothing. And they are both abstractions, they don't exist. For example, nothing, he needs absolute nothing in order to say, well, we see something, the world, but it came out of absolute nothing and God created it from this nothing. Here one may have a remark, okay, before the universe appeared, you say that there was absolute nothing, but if God existed in this nothing, it wasn't complete nothing, was it? And then the other word that he needs is being, because then he can say everything that exists, this is the abstraction being. You can easily imagine it as absent, non-being, and then you have to look for a creator, or what created it, how did it come into being. This phrase is also not correct. Craig says time and space came into being. Time is not a thing, it is not a substance that can come into being or disappear into being. What we conceive as time is actually the change that we observe in reality. And this change is caused by all the particles in constant motion and always striving to higher entropy. That means more disorder. And particles always achieve more disorder because there are a lot more ways for the particles to be arranged in a disorder than in an order. In order, there are only certain ways that they can stand, but there are a lot more, statistically, a lot more ways in which particles can be arranged in a disorder. And that is why it always goes from low entropy to a higher entropy, from order to disorder. That is what we conceive as the arrow of time. When scientists say that time began, that they only mean that from the quantum vacuum, where there is only energy, there are no material particles, so nothing moves, you don't have movement. But the moment when, according to Einstein's equation, mass appeared from energy, then these material particles were in movement, they are always in movement. Craig should be stopped here, because if you allow him this conclusion, then he will ease himself into you. If once this conclusion is accepted, that the universe began from nothing and you must look for a cause, you are done with. Because he can very easily say, if the universe came from nothing, something transcendental must have created it. It must be a personal being, and so on and so on. You know his arguments. But the one thing where he is not correct is at the beginning of the cosmological argument. So what I want to say is, don't allow Dr. Craig to rape your mind. On a nicer note, I must say that actually it's not rape, because what he is using are only abstractions. Being is an abstraction. Nothing is an abstraction. It does not exist. So he is trying to rape your mind with nothing. Take this meaning of nothing as whatever you like. Bye.